for valid reasons beyond their control. I hope and pray that the 2020 election should be the last time that we as a country will need the guarantor system. As come 2020, all citizens should have been issued with national identification cards, and the processes for applying for the national identification cards should have become routine procedure carried out at the national, district, and regional levels. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier, the voters' registration exercise begins tomorrow. It begins at a time when we as a nation have not yet beaten the COVID-19 virus, nor completely curtailed its spread. The registration exercise will require the gathering of large numbers of people. There's the risk of transmission and spread of the COVID-19 virus at these gatherings. We are aware that some of us would prefer that we wait for the end of the pandemic before carrying out our processes such as this one. Others believe that since the virus may linger into long term, we must find ways to stay safe while engaging in our normal business. The latter view seems largely to reflect the global approach to the question of when to resume normal economic and social life, but with each country adapting this approach to its circumstances. As a Commission, we have paid close attention to the signals from the government and from the Ghana Health Service, which suggests the latter approach. We have in addition held discussions with a national COVID-19 team established by the government and again the Ghana Health Service. We have taken their advice on best practice in curtailing the spread of the virus. We have thus developed the following safety regimen to be carried out at all our registration centers throughout the country. First, as has been our practice, all registration centers will be set up outdoors in open spaces. Where schools, churches, and other such venues are used as registration centers, we will not set camp inside the school or church buildings. Our registration centers will be set up in open fields and open spaces outside the school and church buildings. We will not use the school or church furniture. We will use the Electoral Commission's furniture and set up for use as registration centers. This has been our policy and practice in times past and will remain so. As an added measure, our furniture and our fittings will be continually wiped with alcohol wipes. Other COVID-19 preventive measures that will be observed at all registration centers are as follows. All people entering the registration center or queuing to enter the registration center would be required to wear a nose mask. On arrival at the registration center, every person's temperature will be taken using a thermometer gun. Persons with temperatures above 37.8 degrees Celsius will be directed to the health personnel at the registration centers or the nearest public health facility. Special arrangements will be made for them to register. The Commission will provide liquid soap and water with Veronica buckets for the mandatory washing of hands before joining the queue or entering the registration center. There will be strict adherence to physical distance of at least 1 meter in the queues at all centers. Our fingerprint scanners will be cleaned prior to the capturing of fingerprints of applicants using alcohol wipes. Hand sanitizers will be provided for the mandatory sanitizing of hands when leaving the stations. It is important to note that the Ghana Health Service has released some 7,000 health assistants to each of the registration centers nationwide. It is expected that the health assistants will assist us in ensuring strict adherence to the safety protocols outlined by the Electoral Commission. In all of these safety measures, we will rely on your cooperation, dear citizens. We believe and know that it will not be easy, but with your compliance with the above measures, we should be able to carry out all the registration procedures safely. I must mention further that special arrangements have been made for the elderly and vulnerable people during the registration exercise. All vulnerable persons, such as persons with disabilities, pregnant women, and breastfeeding mothers, the aged, that is 60 years and above, as well as the sick, will be given priority at all our registration centers. In addition, the Commission has introduced a new facility to serve the aged and the vulnerable as follows. The aged and vulnerable may go to the district offices of the Electoral Commission across the country for their registration. Additionally, they have the option of printing and filling out their forms before they go to the registration centers. This will help to speed up the registration process. It is important to emphasize that the Form 1A, which captures the biometric data, as well as the guarantee forms, can be found on our website. And the address is www.ec.gov.gh. Please note that the registration for the aged and vulnerable at our district offices starts on Thursday, the 2nd of July, 2020. A major concern a number of citizens have raised with us has to do with the quality of our temporary officers. We have recruited, trained, and deployed over 40,000 staff, indeed over 44,000 staff into the field. We are confident that the training provided them has prepared them to operate efficiently and professionally. As part of the training, we have drummed home the importance of instilling the principles of integrity, fairness, and transparency in all the activities throughout the registration process. We have also introduced a code of conduct which spells out guidelines for the activities. As part of the recruitment exercise, all temporary staff signed an oath pledging to abide by the rules and regulations governing the activities. Ahead of the registration exercise, the Commission will deploy 8,000 biometric voter registration kits into the field. The kits have been thoroughly tested, and we are confident that they will function efficiently and ensure a smooth and speedy registration of each applicant. We envisage that the robustness of the kits, as well as the extensive training offered, each applicant should not spend more than 10 minutes going through the registration process. We have deployed over 5,000 technicians to the field and set up zonal centers all across the country. These centers will be manned by our technicians, and it is expected that they will ensure a prompt and timely replacement of faulty kits in the field. We believe that with this approach, we should witness a smooth and seamless voters' registration exercise. I'll now turn my attention to the mode of registration. The cluster system will be used for the voters' registration exercise. A cluster consists of 5 registration centers or polling stations in a district. In total, 6,788 clusters, made up of 5 polling stations each, will be covered. This means that all 33,367 registration centers will be covered during the registration exercise. The registration will take place simultaneously in all 16 regions of Ghana. The entire registration will be undertaken in 5 phases. Each phase will span a duration of 6 days. In effect, a registration team will spend 6 days at each of the 5 centers of the cluster, thus making 30 days for each cluster. We would have an additional 6 days, which would be used for the mopping up exercise. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Commission has published the movement plan on its website and in the newspapers today. We would urge you to go onto our website and study the movement plan to enable you ascertain when the registration team would visit your registration center. Distinguished guests, it is important to emphasize at this time the transparency of our processes and to allay the fears of our stakeholders. Over the years, a number of mechanisms have been built into our processes to tighten the loose screws and to ensure transparency and accountability from the registration of voters to the declaration of results. For the purposes of this exercise, I'll focus on the transparency embedded into our registration process. Indeed, before the Electoral Commission commences any registration process, it has to provide all registered political parties with a 21 days notice of its intention to compile or update the register. This is to afford political parties the opportunity to train and assign agents to the various registration centers. The agents of the political parties remain at the registration centers from the start of the process to the end. At the beginning of each day, the Electoral Commission officer starts the machine or kits in the presence of political party agents. The kits show the date, time, and a record of the number of persons who have registered. In all cases, at the start of the day, that number is 0. At the end of each day, the kit generates a printout that gives the total number of persons who have been registered in a day. Each political party is given a copy of the printout. The Electoral Commission forwards the same copy to its database. Additionally, political parties may on their own record the number of persons who are registered per day. This enables them to confirm their own records against the printout from the Electoral Commission. Indeed, any party with this information can set up its own system to track and record the number of applicants who have been registered across the nation on a daily basis. It is important to note that the entire registration process is also monitored by various observer groups. And this year, we've seen a good number of observer groups who have shown interest in monitoring the process. We believe this will further strengthen our processes. Distinguished citizens, as a commission which believes in law and order, peace and stability, we have engaged regularly with the security agencies through the mechanism of the Election Security Task Force. We are confident that our early and regular engagements will yield positive gains and cause us to witness a peaceful and violence-free exercise. On our part, we call on all Ghanaians to work with us to ensure a peaceful registration exercise. Members of the press, dear citizens, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a rather lengthy speech, but I hope it has addressed the most important issues relating to the 2020 voter registration exercise. On behalf of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, I thank all our stakeholders, namely the leaders of our religious bodies, traditional authority, civil society, the media, and all well-meaning Ghanaians for their support over the months. I'd also like to thank all of you for your time and the opportunity to speak to you. We look forward to seeing all of you at the registration centers with your face masks firmly in place as we embark upon this all-important exercise. We will carry out this exercise efficiently and safely, God being our helper. I wish you all a blessed evening. May God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much for your attention.